Hello everybody, my name is Hasty Swampert and I'm back to give you all the team builder of the first ever Battle of the World Pokemon Association. And for this week, our opponent is Jspeckz, who's the coach of the Hamden Hydreigons, and if you look at his roster, he has Mega Charizard X, he has Sylveon, Weavile, Skarmory, Blastoise, Tangela, Dugtrio, Rotom, the regular one, Miltank, and Scolipede. So, my first priority was that I wanted to have something to deal with the Charizard, because the Charizard is really scary. So because of that, I wanted to have Goodyear, the Donphan, and Goodyear has a good amount of physical bulk, and it's like the thing which takes Flare Blitz the best and Outrage, and I could either hit it with Counter, or if you want to set up a Dragon Dance, I have Roar, and Stealth Rock is the Charizard, and Earthquake is Stab, so really, it's just there to kind of deal with Charizard. It also walls Dugtrio, and that's pretty much it, but Donphan's going to be very important this match, so I can't be too careless with her. It's a girl, because I had to breed for it, so it ended up being female. Now we have you Wattmate, the Electabuzz. I know, most creative name ever. And I wanted to go with a Life Orb Electabuzz because it deals with Blastoise, it deals with Skarmory. It also has Signal Beam, which I can use for Tangela, and Focus Blast is for Miltank, which is a roll to KO, and Volt Switch is for initiative. Vital Spirit is important because it prevents Electabuzz from going to sleep, which is like one of the good selling points of Electabuzz. And Life Orb is there for the more damage. And yeah, that's pretty much it. That's you Wattmate. And I think this is the best, one of my favorite nicknames that I've made. Now next up we have the Joker, or Gengar, and we're running a Focus Sash Gengar because it just does well with Sludge Bomb and Shadow Ball. It just has good coverage. And then Focus Blast is for the Miltank, and then Destiny Bond is just there to take something down when it feels like it has to go down. So that's why I really like Gengar. Hazards will stink, but besides that, I think this can work. So yeah, that's Gengar. Now, Florges is my closest thing to dealing with Weavile. So it's like a 3-hit KO with the leftovers and full defensive investment. So yet again, can't be too careless with Florges, but it's my way of dealing with Weavile because Weavile kind of stops Pinsir, and Pinsir can put a lot of hurt onto Jspeckz's roster. But Moonblast is for Stab, Wish, Protect, Aromatherapy, and that's pretty much it. Now we have Crawdon, and Crawdon, I want to bring Crawdon because it just has really good neutral coverage, and Knockoff can really hurt Tangela. Dragon Dance is there if I can get an opportunity to set up, and I think it would really be cool. And also, Crawdon resists freaking Ice Shard from Weavile, and then knock off Crabhammer, their Stab, and that's pretty much it. Couldn't think of a nickname for Crawdon. I'll probably think of one soon. And then we have Pinsir. Pinsir is probably what's going to try to sweep. If he doesn't bring Weavile, then we're in good hands. And Skarmory's another answer, but Electabuzz is kind of there to scare off Skarmory. So Return, Close Combat, Quick Attack, and Sword Dance. Do I need Close Combat? Yeah, I do. I need it for Miltank. So that's pretty much it for the team. I just think Pinsir's really good against a lot of teams, so this will really, I'll have to be careful with Pinsir. Okay, so I just had my battle with Jspeckz, and it was quite the battle, which you will see. So I'm going to start playing the replay right now, and I will tell you all what happened. So, I decided to lead with Gengar, because it outsped his whole team, besides Scolipede after his speed boost, but I thought that Gengar had like a really good matchup against Jspeckz's team, so he leads with his Skarmory, and I was in a good spot. So right here, I just decided to go for a Shadow Ball, because it's neutral on his whole team, and judging from that damage, it's a physically defensive Skarmory, and he goes for Stealth Rock. And he couldn't take another hit, so after this, he switches out, and he goes out into his Blastoise, which takes the Shadow Ball pretty well. and I knew I had nothing which wanted to take a Scald afterwards. So after this hit goes off, you see leftovers. So after that, I pretty much decided to sack off Crawdon because Crawdon didn't have the greatest matchup. So I bring in Pinchy the Crawdon, and he ends up going for Scald, and Scald's it's gonna do a bit of damage to Crawdon, and I do not get burned, which I'm happy about. So right here, it's a free knockoff for me, so I just go for the knockoff, and I end up almost taking it out. I took its leftovers away, and he goes for another Scald, and this time it's Torn boosted, so it almost KOs Crawdon. And I don't get burned again, so I was able to take out Extensions the Blastoise, and that crit did not matter. So Crawdon gets the first kill of the season, which is great to know. Crawdon pulling through. So he brings in his Scolipede, and he goes for a Protect. I went for a Crab Hammer in case he went for like a substitute or decided to try to set up on me. And I wanted to give this Scolipede no breathing space. So he goes for a substitute this turn, and I just opted the Crab Hammer again, and Crab Hammer connects, and I was able to break his substitute, but unfortunately, after the substitute goes down, Crawdon goes down from Life Orb. So Crawdon faints, but that's alright, because Crawdon was able to get a KO, he did his job, and we find out that the Scolipede is Black Sludge. Well, we found that out the turn before. So at this point, I bring in Goodyear, because Goodyear could take any hit if it was like an offensive Scolipede, and I could just phase out the Scolipede. So he decides to Baton Pass, and I wanted to click Roar, but I wanted Stealth Rock up because of the Charizard. So I go for Stealth Rock. He brings in his Weavile, and I could have roared, but I didn't want to do it. It was safer to go for the rocks for the Charizard. So I had counter on my Donphan, which I explained in the team builder, and he goes for the Icicle Crash, and I stay in, hoping that I wasn't going to flinch, because if I didn't flinch, I'd be able to get off a counter, and I would be able to take out this Donphan, and we find out that it's a Life Orb Weavile. And Donphan doesn't flinch, and she's able to get off the counter and take out the Weavile, which he was not expecting. So there goes the Weavile, which was good. Donphan getting the second kill of the season. Good job, Goodyear. And now he brings back in Skarmory, and Jspeckz decides to go for a Roost on the Skarmory, and I could have clicked Earthquake, but I wanted to lure in that Charizard with Roar, so I just clicked Roar and just hoped that I bring in the Charizard. So Donphan goes for Roar, there goes Skarmory, and I do bring in the Charizard, which I'm very happy about, and it ends up taking almost half from the Stealth Rocks, which is good. So I get my leftovers, and then he decides to Mega Evolve into Mega Charizard X, and at this point, he ended up going for a Dragon Claw, and then I went for another Roar. I could have Earthquaked, but I wanted to play it safe, just in case he decided to switch out, and he ends up bringing in his Sylveon, and I was expecting a Hyper Voice, and I had no switch-ins for Hyper Voice. So because of that, I decided to save Donphan as fodder. So I switch out Donphan, and I knew the best thing which could take a Hyper Voice was Floor Jays. So I bring in Floor Jays, and he actually ends up going for the Side Shock. And I end up learning that it specs from the damage. It doesn't do over half, which I'm happy about. So I was able to get some leftovers, and right here, I predicted him to go into his Skarmory, so I decided to go out into You What Made the Electabuzz, and he does, in fact, switch, and you will see he actually does go back into Skarmory. So after this turn, he just decides to switch out again after taking Stealth Rock damage, and I just decided to go for a Thunderbolt because it's free damage on whatever comes in. So he decides to bring in the Sylveon, and I just went for a Thunderbolt. After the Stealth Rocks, it does a little bit of damage, which is nice. Doesn't do a crazy amount, it does some damage. So at this point, I decided to Volt Switch, and I decided to sack off my Donphan because Donphan couldn't do much else because everything else outsped it. And I bring in Goodyear. Goodyear's going to take Stealth Rock damage, but it doesn't matter. So he goes for the Hyper Voice on that girl, the Sylveon, and Goodyear goes down. So Goodyear did her job by getting rid of Weavile and getting rocks up. So then I bring in Gengar, and I just decided to click Shadow Ball just in case he switched. And there goes Sylveon, and that's another Pokemon down. So we have a really strong start. So he brings back in his Scolipede, no Flex Zone, and it's going to take some Stealth Rock damage. And he decides here to go for Protect, which is whatever. Now, this is where I played a little odd, because I expected him any moment to Baton Pass out with his Speed Boost. So, pretty much he went for a substitute. I ended up clicking Destiny Bond because I was expecting him to bring in the Charizard. And if he brought in the Charizard with the Speed Boost, it could probably mean bad news for me. Because the main problem with Charizard X is before the boost, because it's not as hard to outspeed and KO. So I would not be able to revenge kill it after a speed boost, and it would take out my whole team. So really, that's why I've been spamming Destiny Bond. And after a certain point, I think it's after this turn, I just decided to go for a Sludge Bomb. Now, I should have just went for Shadow Ball because it's neutral. But the reason I did that was because I forgot that Weavile was KO'd and I thought he still had Weavile. But really, the other two Pokemon which were left was Charizard and Skarmory. So, because of that, I kept spamming Sludge Bomb, thinking he was going to Baton Pass into Weavile, because I had no more Donphan, and Floor Jays was weakened. So, really, I just spammed Sludge Bomb, which was unnecessary. And after a certain point, he couldn't make any more substitutes, and I knew he had to Baton Pass out. So, yet again, I think he Baton Passes out this turn. We're going to see. Yeah, here he Baton Passes, and he goes out into his Skarmory, which I actually wasn't expecting. I forgot that Skarmory was still there. And I went for another Sludge Bomb, being foolish, and it just doesn't do anything because Skarmory is immune to poison moves. So here it goes for Roost, and I made the crazy prediction of predicting Roost, and I ended up Focus Blasting, and this was 100% necessary because he wouldn't be able to Roost stall me out. So I go for the Focus Blast, and I was able to knock it down to Sturdy, and it would make sense if he had Sturdy and any other ability. So at this point, I just went for a Shadow Ball because no matter what, I would do over half, even after roosting, so I would KO, and there goes Skarmory. Now, next up is he brings back out Scolipede, and he Baton Passes out, well, he protects then Baton Passes out, which you'll see right here. So I just go for the Shadow Ball, and you're gonna see, after this, he's going to go for a Baton Pass. And hold on a moment. Yep, there we go. Now he goes for the Baton Pass. The animations at times are a little too slow for me. But then he Baton Passes out into the Charizard. But you're going to see that after Stealth Rocks, it's going to knock it down to like a quarter damage. And Gengar is able to take it out with Shadow Ball. So there goes the Charizard. And then afterwards, Scolipede's going to come in, and it's just going to go down to the Stealth Rocks. And that is a 4-0 victory for me, well, for the coach of the New York Simipours, Hasty Swampert. So we have a really strong start, which I'm happy about. GG to Jspeckz. Links to his channel and his Twitter will be in the description below. If you enjoyed this video, I would like it if you were to leave a like, comment, subscribe. That is, if you enjoyed it, and I will see you all next time.